how to create a fractured design in Photoshop using gradients. First thing to do, just go to the gradient tool, select that, and then go up to the gradients there, up at the top, left, click on there to display the panel. Now you can stretch this out, you can drag this out so you can see all the stops it's made from. First stop is black, then a little bit further along, about 10% along or whatever, I'm just making it even. You don't have to make it even, of course. There's a white stop, and then just slightly offset, there is a black stop. And you can add stops very easy by clicking along the bottom of the bar. And you can see that's repeated all the way along. So you've got white, then slightly off is black, and then a little bit of gap, then white, and then black, and so on and so on. To add a stop, simply just click just below the bar. And that one's, of course, black. And then you can go and select a white one and then go along and click there. And you can drag those and move them. So you can, and occasionally if you click it by accident, it will bring up the color. I don't want that. But you can just shift it slightly. You can also use the location down the bottom. So if you want to make it fine tune, so go on the stop, maybe set it to 34. For the black stop, set it to 35. That might be an easy way of doing it. You can always drag them off and remove. So again, you can repeat that. Just go all the way along, add in white and then black, white and then black, white and black, all the way to the end and finish off with white. So once you've got that, to actually keep it and store it, just go to the new. There's just on the right of the panel, you can see there's a new. And you can click there and that will be added to your presets. You don't have to do that, but it just means it's there for future use. You can just see it added there. Now just click OK. And what you can do, well, you can add that. You can add it using the gradient tool. Now the gradient tool is fine, but I don't think it's as easy to manipulate as using the layer gradient feature. And there's a number of options I'm using in this case, using the diamond. And you can also use blending mode. So you can use normal, of course, but then you lose the image. Now I don't want that. I want to use the diamond with maybe darken or overlay. And you can obviously just test them out and just apply it like that. It doesn't create a very fractured design. But overlay, when you select that, and you can change origin point, you can see what happens. You can see this, you've got a lovely shadow there. So you've got the white, and you can of course apply it anywhere. Well, I say, best way, I think, is the layer option. So layer and a new fill layer. Just go to a gradient. Click OK. Of course, it defaults to the first one. What you want is the one right down the bottom, the one you've just created. And again, of course, what happens, you can't see anything. It just does it linear. I want the diamond option. And you can change this at any point. So you can always go back and change origin point. You can also change the scale. You can also change the angle. And you can obviously increase the scale so you can see it goes all the way to the edge. Sadly, there's no repeat feature in Photoshop. I wish there was, but there isn't. And you can, let's say, move the origin point. And you can go back to this at any point. Click OK. Now, of course, you still cannot see behind the gradient, but you can change that in the layers panel. So click OK. Now just go to the layers panel, or you can always do this at a later point. Window, obviously make certain you got it. Layers. But you can also, with a layer, of course, you can duplicate it. So you can just go layer menu and duplicate. So you've got now 2 of these designs. Of course, you still can't see the London underneath. It's actually a nice picture of London St. Paul's. Double click there and bring up, and you can then, of course, rotate that. You can change the scale. You can change the origin position as well. And you can always change it at any point. So any of those layers, just double click and bring up the panel. And you can then, of course, change the blending modes. And I'm just going to go for overlay. But you can try out the others. You can go through them. Some work better than others. And again, double click that other one if you want to bring up the panel or just change the blending mode for it. So just change it to overlay. And now what you can see, you've got this like fractured image. You've got the shadow effect, exactly as before. You've got the shadow and you've got obviously the image itself. And of course, you can still double click and vary the settings. So if you want to change the scale or the origin point or the angle, you can do it. And of course, you can add 2 or 3. I wouldn't say if you push it too far, you end up losing the image completely. But you can create all kinds of fractured looking effects just by using this approach. Gives the impression of, anyway. And of course, you can always go and try out the other blending modes. Maybe you might find that they work better to create some very odd effects. But I think the overlay is the best one. But you can use darken, multiply. So once you've done that, of course, with layers, what you can do, you can flatten them. You can do that via the layer menu and flatten image. Once you've done that, of course, that's that. Another option you can always do is you can combine them into a smart object. And then, of course, the smart object can always be manipulated later on. You can always double click into the smart object and change the individual parts of the smart object. So you can see just by simply changing all the various scales, the angle, you can create all kinds of fractured imagery. So you can see here some pools in the background slightly. I have no idea the names of the buildings in front. Now you can select both those layers and you can go down to smart objects and convert into a smart object. Now, straight away that it loses, of course, the blend modes. Well, what you can do, of course, you can go to the blend modes for the smart object and go down to overlay. And you've got the same result there. Or just, again, experiment. Always the thing with these, just experiment which one works best for you. But I find overlay looks the best. But you don't have to use smart objects. You can just leave them as is. And of course, what you can do, you can always go to layer menu and just flatten it. And then, of course, that's it. But you can always extend it even further. You can, of course, apply other filters, such as filter menu and stylize and oil paint. Or maybe liquefy. For the stylize, I normally set the values to the max. I have lighting turned off. Once you're happy with the design, click OK. I always generally apply the oil paint a couple of times. Don't light just once, a couple of times. Of course, there's many other filter effects you can apply. You can use liquefy. Of course, you can use blur and some of the filter gallery effects, all those kinds of things. But you can create these wonderful designs, these fractured images, obviously not just of London, but of anything, just by using gradients. Gradients are a really powerful feature of Photoshop. Now I'm using Photoshop CC220. As I said, you can use it with 219, 218, etc. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Please subscribe to the Graphic Extras channel. Always adding new tutorials about Photoshop, Illustrator, and many others. Also, please add some comments. Always appreciated. It's always really nice to hear some response, whether you like things or maybe other features and things that I should explore. Always happy to hear. Also, a dislike or a like. Always appreciated. Thank you much.